Today we're going to start a new project with a newly received motherboard. This is the MinisForum BD795i SE ITX motherboard. We have in the past created videos covering 3 generations of Odroid H series computers. Each of those computers consisted of a processor which came soldered to the motherboard and pre-fitted with a heatsink that dominated the board. This motherboard is similar in approach, but with a Ryzen 9 7945HX processor soldered to the motherboard and covered with a large heatsink. This processor is a high-end mobile processor with 16 cores and 32 threads, normally seen in premium laptops. Using the Zen 4 architecture, it sports an integrated AMD Radeon 610M graphics chip. This motherboard has been available for a while, and I purchased this one off Amazon in the UK. So let's open up this box and have a look at what we have. And here we are inside the box. Let's get the paperwork out. And the I/O shield and our cables. And the motherboard itself. Make sure they have everything, which we do. Let's just dispose of the box for the moment. And we have a couple of brackets here which are going to be used to mount our heatsinks fan. So we'll put them aside, and our I/O shield. And we have a small amount of documentation. In many languages, of course. And it's quite common these days, our BIOS manual and our guide is online. So we'll have a look at that shortly. So let's get inside the anti-static packaging and have a really good look at the motherboard itself. And here we have our ITX motherboard. The motherboard, of course, is totally dominated by this very large heatsink, underneath which is a Ryzen 9 processor. So let's have a look around the board. On the back of the board, we can see here our CR2032 battery stuck to the back of the board and plugged in. So that's already pre-fitted for us. There appears to be nothing else of specific interest on the back of the motherboard. So let's have a look at the front. So let's have a look at our connectors. We have our audio connector stack at the side here. We have a Ethernet port, which is a 2.5 gigabit port. We have 2 USB ports, because of the USB 2, and we have a couple of USB 3 ports, a USB-C port here, and what appears to be a reset button, and we have 2 video ports, which are HDMI and DisplayPort. And according to the documentation, the USB-C port can also be used as a video port. At the side of our motherboard, we have 2 slots for M.2 SSDs. And for power, we have the traditional 24-pin ATX power socket at the side and an 8-pin CPU power socket down here. According to the documentation, the TDP of this particular unit is 100. So it's not a super hungry motherboard for power. And we have what looks like 3 connectors for fans. One for CPU fan, which will go here, and 2 for chassis fans. And if we turn the board round, we can see at this end we have 2 sets of memory slots, both of which are DDR5 SODIMMs. And we have a front panel connector here, and what appears to be a USB header. And this is a USB 3.2 header, according to the notes on the motherboard. So quite a compact board. So what can we plug into it? Now, one obvious omission on the board is there do not appear to be any SATA ports. However, we do have one graphics card slot at the side here, a ×16 slot. Although we have integrated graphics, we do have the option of putting in a graphics card. So this is our motherboard. Let's have a look at the brackets. We have 2 brackets here on which we can fit our fan. The motherboard itself does not come with a fan. You have to purchase one separately. However, there are plenty of reliable fans out there that can be used for this purpose. I've also purchased one of Noctua's 120mm premium fans, 4-pin, for sitting on top of our heatsink. So that will probably be the first unit we fit. As I said, the memory is DDR5, and according to the documentation that comes with it, we have DDR5 SODIMMs going up to 5200 MHz. So this looks like the basis of a very powerful but economical PC. So before we go any further, I think we'll get this mounted on our test frame, just so it becomes a little easier to handle. There we are. That will make it much easier to test out when we get to that point. Now, I'm not going to complete a build today because I'm waiting on a number of items. I need to get SSDs, NVMe SSDs for this, and I'll need memory, and of course I will need a power supply. I'm going to be using one of the HD Plex power supplies initially for this, and we're going to try it out with using the integrated graphics. So this looks as though it's going to be a start of a very interesting project. Our I/O shield connects via these 2 small screws above the I/O ports. Nice, let's get that in first. And there we have our I/O shield securely in place. That's a nice touch. Obviously our fan cannot overhang where the graphics card is going to go. Right, now will our fan fit nicely on that? There all we need to do now is to screw these 4 screws in, and our fan should be attached quite happily to the top of our heatsink. And there we have our fan fully connected, and we can just plug this in. And that is a fan in place. We can tie that back at some point. So now that we have our fan and our I/O shield connected, I think this will probably complete this video. Now we do have a connector for Wi-Fi, which I'm not going to be using in this particular build, but it's good to know that it's actually there. So all we have to do now is to order up some memory and intend going for the full 64 gigabyte that this motherboard will support. And we'll also want to have 2 NVMe SSDs in these slots here. As the board does not take any kind of SATA connecting, these will be our sole storage, one for operating system and one for data. The power supply is already on order, so once it arrives we can actually test out the system. So I think we're ready to go. This should prove to be a very interesting project. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.